not my style, or I don't like the way he talks. Is it the container, or is it the contents? And what do I mean by that? Daryl, what do I mean by container or contents when it comes to a preacher? What do you think?
I think that sometimes with a preacher, he's really the sole person we look at.
Okay?
And he may be the container, because we're looking at him, and the content, of course, would be the preaching. But I kind of wonder today whether, I say this kind of loosely, but in our congregation, we have working elders. And these elders are doing the things in the past preachers have done.
Yep.
So it seems to me that in some cases, churches like ours, maybe we just need a preacher that just does preaching.
Okay.
Not doing some of the things that the elders are doing. I remember we were in Tucson one time, and they lost a preacher, and it was a guy that was filling in. And he said, I've accepted the job of being the preacher. But he said, that's all I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Is just preach. And then some of the visiting people would be left up to others, usually the elders or deacons. But it is a difficult choice. In the past, I think the preachers that are really important, kind of been the mainstay of the congregation. He's doing things. But today I kind of wonder, the small congregations.
It's tough. Yeah, it's tough. I'll get you in just a second. It's tough because we've talked about this before, you're in a quandary. If you have enough people that can support a minister, that's great. But most congregations are slipping to the point that Magnolia Center. Marilyn told me about that. Magnolia Center, where her son and daughter-in-law go, or did, they couldn't afford a preacher. If you've ever been to Mag Center in Riverside, that's a huge campus. This thing's huge. Okay? Huh? Were you married there? Okay. And it didn't fall down. Okay. But that's the fact of life right now. So we have to deal with it. And so, with only having one preaching school out here in the west, which is Bear Valley, per se, you got to go to Texas or someplace else further east to find a preaching school. There's not that many ministers there, but the content, does he know enough? Is he qualified enough that way? The container is how does he present himself and what does he look like? Okay? You want somebody old, you want somebody young. Doesn't matter. Does it matter to you if he's married or single?
Matters to me what he knows in the Bible.
Okay? I thought you were going to say it matters to you if he's single. All you single women. All them hemming women want some. They need something to do on Friday and Saturday nights, right? I'm teasing with you. Okay. Yes, Freddie.
I think Daryl makes a good point. But since people look to the preacher for certain things, over and above just bringing the message on Sunday, whether they like it or not, there's a responsibility that has to be met.
Yep. Okay. Annette, you had your hand up. I'm sorry. I'll get you now.
I forgot. Okay.
Okay.
So what I would be looking for is to know the word, be able to talk with people, engage with people, things of that nature.
Okay.
So those are things I would be looking for.
Friendly, outgoing. Okay. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
I've heard people say that the preacher should be visiting more.
Okay.
That might be a point, but that's the elder's job.
That's right.
Elders are shepherds, they're supposed to take care of the flock.
Yeah.
But you still want the preacher to, like, one woman there in Hemet, her husband said that she was sick and her husband said, well, the preacher's coming Oh, you mean I'm that sick, I'm gonna die, that the preacher's gonna.
Yeah. My sister-in-law, you got the mic on now?
It should be.
Okay. My sister-in-law at one time, she quit going to a congregation because she asked one of the elders to go visit her daughter in the hospital, and they didn't go. And it meant a lot to her. She didn't want the preacher, she wanted the elder. Now, yeah, the Bible says the elders to visit, okay? But, as Darrell was talking, a lot of congregations, a lot of the elders still work. They're still doing 40-hour jobs. So it kind of fell at some point in time onto the preacher because he is doing the work of the church. I don't want to use that terminology, but you know what I mean. People expect him to do it, and that's a tough thing. A lot of them don't want to. They're not teaching that in preaching school nowadays for the preacher to go out and teach, go out and visit. Larry brought that up. They do other things. You're finding that some of these schools are teaching the pastoral system, and that is where the preacher actually becomes the elder and runs things, and the elders basically become deacons, and the deacons just whatever, which is not how God set it up. That's not a workable system. Are there Bible qualifications for a preacher? Can you give me book, chapter, verse?
That's pretty much a given, isn't it?
What's that? What?
I mean, all of us expect them to book, chapter, and verse.
Okay. Does education mean anything?
Bible education.
Okay. I don't know, you tell me if there's a correlation between this, but I'm 72 years old, I think. Last time I looked, I was. I can remember growing up in the 50s and 60s, and most of the preachers did not have a Bible school education. Some did, but they didn't have a degree from Abilene or Oklahoma Christian or Lipscomb or Harding or Freed Hardeman or any of those. They were taught by a preacher or a congregation that had a little preaching school going, taught them and sent them out to preach. Now, at the time of the 40s and 50s and 60s when that was happening, we were the fastest growing religious body in the nation. All of a sudden, we get educated preachers, and I'm not downgrading education, but we start getting educated preachers, and where do we start going in numbers? Start to nosedive. Is there a correlation to that? I don't know. You be the judge of that. Yes, ma'am.
When I was growing up, my dad was rotating with the preacher. You know, if the preacher wasn't there, my dad was there, or another man was there. But my dad had enough Bible knowledge that he converted my first husband, who was a Catholic. He converted him.
Okay.
And he preached scripture.
Yeah. Yeah, not society natures.
And that's how, we didn't have any paid preachers.
No. At one time, you didn't have paid preachers per se. You didn't have a located preacher. We talked about that. A located preacher is what we would have today. Back in the turn of the century, the 1900s, they were people that would here 1 week, there 1 week, there 1 week, and then make the circuit. And you may pay them a few bucks. And then along came the located preacher to the congregation. And the one thing that they did show, that once you started having a located preacher, the congregation grew because of the attention that one person can put. Darrell talked about that. You look at the preacher as being the spark plug. He's the face of the church. If you're a visitor and you come in the door and you come in for worship and you see the guy up there preaching, he's your contact. That's the one you get close to. because you're listening to him, right? And sometimes that could be a negative. Sometimes it's a positive. Sometimes you don't like what he's saying. You know, they may leave. You know, so it's important to find the right person. You got to have the parameters wide, because you're never going to find a perfect person, are you? Never. Just like an elder, the qualifications for elders and deacons, they have parameters. Not everybody's going to be a 10 in all those qualifications, okay? And that's what's good about an eldership, and I think that's what's good about the eldership here, is not all the same. Everybody's got their strong points and weak points, and we blend together very well. John.
Okay, you mentioned the 40s, 50s, and 60s. I'm a couple of days older than you.
Okay.
So when I came along, we didn't have any elders, and we never had elders in any of our churches. And all the ministers were mostly trained by the church and so forth. So when I look for a minister, I look for a minister willing to do everything. He don't have to do everything, but a minister that is available to do what's necessary to keep the work going.
Okay. So what do you, well, let's back up a minute. We don't ordain ministers, do we?
No.
Okay, so we don't certify them or ordain them or any of that stuff, right? Okay, got it. Just making sure. So what specifically do you think a minister has to do? For instance, when we hired Steve, we told Steve that, at the time it was the men's group that hired him, he wasn't going to have to teach all the time. You've been to congregations where the preacher teaches Sunday morning class, preaches Sunday morning, preaches Sunday evening, takes care of the Wednesday night class, or one of them. If you're a bigger congregation, you've got multiple. And we'll also take care of a midweek Bible study for the women, or here we used to have Tuesday morning co-ed. So we told Steve, no, we don't need that. If we have him doing all the work, how can you be trained to teach? Aren't we supposed to train somebody to come in behind us? We should be training teachers. We should be training deacons. We should be training elders to take the spot of people. You know, to pick up the slack. Next man up, just like in the military. Next man up, next man up. So, so what's important to you? Daryl, hang on a second. Daryl, I got Daryl first. Then I come back to you.
I think for me, in a small congregation, to have a preacher that has a full-time job elsewhere, and then he just preaches when his time comes to preach. Now, if you have a very large congregation, about 400, 500, 600 people, maybe it's more important to have a full-time preacher. I know
Yeah.
situations where a couple of people were dying, and the person that was taking care of them was at the homes was a mourner. And the two people that were dying asked to have the preacher come. So the woman lady who was in charge of the home called the preacher, and he just didn't come. Finally, he did come, and she said, well, why didn't you come to visit your, people in your congregation? He said, it's not part of my job description.
Okay.
So to him,
Yeah.
he's a preacher, he doesn't do any work. So if you have a congregation where you have someone really do well, you don't have to pay them a huge amount of salaries, for the year. That can work out well, he's a preacher, and yet he has a job that can sustain his income.
Yeah.
And then other people in the congregation can go out and do the visitation and the other things that go on. Teaching a class, Sunday morning Bible class, that means just anybody. Doesn't have to be the preacher.
Yeah, I talked with a guy last week that said the same thing. A situation. To me, I don't want somebody hired to be a worker. I want somebody as a minister that wants to be here, that wants to do the work. There's a difference. If the need comes up, as John says, we want them to step up and work with people. Not sit back and say, well, I don't get paid enough money. Or you're not paying me for that. Or, that's not in my job qualification or my job description. Or I don't have time for that because I have to do this and that. I don't think we're looking for that. Freddie, and then somebody back here? I thought, I don't know, maybe it's not him.
We got, what, 85 people in our congregation, somewhere in there?
Yeah, pushing 100.
All right,
If everybody shows up over 100.
okay. One of the strengths of this particular congregation is the welcoming aspect. I don't know how you measure that. I mean, when someone's applying for the job, they're gonna smile at you, they're gonna shake your hand, and they're gonna be, all right? But, without that element, I think we'd be out of business.
Yeah, it's hard because like back when I was growing up in Orange County, you'd change preachers every 2 or 3 years, like I said, and the preacher would come in. He was from another area, but you knew who he was. You had heard him. The elders could go out and listen to him or hear him. We have the same thing today. We got to get online and watch them. It's hard to find a person that's really going to be outgoing on one time of bringing them in to preach. It's expensive to bring somebody in because there's no pickings in Southern California. You got to go outside the area a lot of times. And so when we were looking previous, it was, what was it costed? About $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 just to bring in a preacher for the weekend. You fly them in, put them up in a hotel, rent them a car if they need a car, and send them on their way. That's a lot of money. And so do you want to spend that kind of money bringing in preachers, or you want to save it and have the elders preach? Now, at one time, who did the preaching? The elders. When you read Justin Martyr and his apologies, he tells you that the elders did the teaching, did the preaching. That's because they're usually the ones that had the miraculous gifts of knowledge and could pass it on. There wasn't really they did have located preachers. Paul stayed in areas 2 or 3 years sometimes, or 18 months. But it was the elders that did that. So do you want to spend $7,000 bringing in a preacher, or do you want to listen to the elders or somebody else talk? Do you think it's important to have a preacher? Some people don't. You got congregations here in Southern California that are mutually edified. They do not believe, the church does not believe in having hired preachers. It's in Anaheim. There's a congregation. They all do take their time preaching. The problem is, are you going to grow? We've kind of worked ourselves into a corner that we expect having a preacher, don't we? Sure. That would be the thing to do. Do you think preachers should have office hours? Believe it or not, that causes that's a bone of contention with people. I want somebody to have office hours here.
Personally, I think if the preacher has office hours, people walking by can stop and talk to the preacher that's in there, and maybe they're looking for something.
Do you think people care? The neighborhood here, do you think they walk by, will come in here?
I don't know.
Sometimes they do, yeah, they do. But a lot of people think because of this thing right here,
Yeah.
preacher's accessible 24/7. So if you need to talk to him or see him, you can call him up and make an appointment. Or I need to talk to you, talk on the phone. It's not like the old days when you had landlines and if he was out of the office, you couldn't talk to him. You see? So there's questions like that to go about to make you know, this side wants office hours, this side don't care type of thing. This is an example.
You have your hand back here somewhere.
I had a hand back here somewhere. Anybody put their hand up? Okay, well, now they're bashful.
I got some.
So what other aspects of a preacher do you think are needed? Yes?
Common sense. Now, I will, you know, like for instance,
And you're the one coming up with common sense?
yes, what I mean by common sense is that if you're a preacher, you're the leader, whether you have elders or not, most churches now have elders, but you have to have common sense. You have to do what makes the church grow. For instance, if it's necessary, you be in the office, you should be in office if it's necessary. If it's not, I mean, you have to, in conjunction with the other leadership, but you have to have common sense. Want somebody willing to do the work of evangelist and figure out what's best for the congregation, not what's best for you or what you feel like in your job.
That's what Paul said here in Romans. Said, how then will they hear on him in whom they have not believed? How will they believe in him whom they have not heard? How will they hear without a preacher?
I don't care if they have office hours
Okay.
or not, if it's gonna make the church grow,
Yeah.
have some office hours. That don't mean you have to be here every day, but use some common sense, do what the church needs to.
Yeah.
Get done.
Yeah, we are continuing, believe it or not, even because with Larry retiring, and then Steve coming on and being sick for 6 months and ended up passing away, we have continued to grow a little bit. We're baptizing as many a year as the average is. They say 2 to 4. So I'm not saying we should be satisfied with that. I wouldn't be satisfied with that. We should be, wouldn't it be great if everybody could bring somebody and we baptize them? We'd go from 100 people to 200 just like that. It could happen. We couldn't even, what's that, Jonathan, how many people occupancy does that say? 110? 110?
Yeah.
Boy,
Oh, that's old,
that's probably old. I didn't have that section over there then. Okay? Well, we'd have to build a new building. We'd have to go over to our other lot and build it. Wouldn't that be great? Yes, John?
One of the things is that, growing up in the Church of Christ, we trained everybody. All the men were trained on a regular basis. All the women was trained on a regular basis. So everybody was trained to do everything. We had people, all the men knew how to do everything, and all the women knew how to do everything. And I think that's part of leadership. Is
Okay.
to train everybody.
Okay.
No, not the priests. You had women teaching the women what to do, you know. And then the men, you had the men teaching the men what they're supposed to do.
But he has to have the ability to communicate. And you would think that going to a preaching school, they would teach you how to communicate, right? Jake, what do you look at? Did you ever have to hire a minister?
Several times, yeah.
What did you look at? What was important to you?
Well, you have to deal with the congregation on a personal level. You can't, take one situation, fit another situation.
That's right.
So you're listening to you now, you're talking about what's good for this congregation, where it is the makeup of the congregation and this nature. So
Yes.
because of that, it would be kind of hard for me to say, well, this congregation needs that, or whatever the case may be. I'm looking at it strictly from where, I was working.
Sure.
We did. There were many times when we would go to a lectureship, and I would be given all the prerequisites of what we're supposed to look for with a minister, put out the flyers, let them know we're looking for a minister. If there's somebody there who's supposed to be able to talk to them, set up some kind of appointment where they can come out, either preach for us or have an interview or something of that nature. But it's all dependent on what particular congregation is. Sometimes the reason why I'm quiet about things is because I don't know that much about this congregation, and I need to hear from people that do know what's going on. So I won't put my 2 cents in on what to look for this congregation.
Okay. Well, I understand that, but I would come back to you with, okay, it's different from where you were at in LA, but still, human beings are human beings. There's still some, you know, there's still some common things from each congregation. I would think communication. I would think being friendly. You know, another thing that comes up, and this is from congregation to congregation, this point. What do you want, if you want him married or not? If he's married, what do you want the wife to do? You gonna put her to work? Or what? Does she work in the secular field? Is that gonna be a problem? Do you hire them as a team? Or just hiring the husband as a preacher? You see, that's kind of what you're going at, I think.
Well, what I'm saying is that it has to be strictly along the lines of what is best for this particular congregation.
Yeah.
And of course, you talk about young, old, or whatever it is, we were batting this thing around about a preacher that applied, and he wasn't married. Of course, it took the widow of the preacher that was there before to tell us, you know, who says that he has to be married in order for you to hire him and everything?
You don't.
It was a long time before we finally stood back and looked at the situation and said, hey, look at what he can do, you know, even as an unmarried person.
Yeah.
And everything, you know, so eventually we wind up hiring him and everything. But really and truly, there is a lot of things that you have to look at from the congregation standpoint, not by, you know, somebody else's pattern and everything.
You know, that's one thing that remember Dale Jenkins came out and talked with us about, what, 6-8 weeks ago? He talked with us on Saturday morning for a couple, 3 hours. And the one thing he told us was, don't let age be a problem. There's still a lot of tread on the tires. So don't think you have to go for somebody young. Don't think you have to go after somebody older. Again, it depends on the congregation, what you're looking for.
Old person may not need as much money.
Well,
But he's financially off, that's what I'm saying.
well, believe it or not, money's the problem.
Yeah, but it's.
Money is the problem.
What I'm saying is people nowadays, a lot of people retire at 55, okay? A person could be retired at 55 and still wanna preach.
Yeah,
And he don't need to,
you don't need that much money.
He don't need that much money anymore, you know.
We had a guy back 4 or 5 years ago when we were looking the first time. And what we have done is when we get the resumes, we go through them, and then if we see somebody that would fit what we think, we interview them either on the phone or Zoom them. And then we decide, are they a candidate or not? And then that's how we weed them out to bring them in. And we had one gentleman from Alabama. And he was hot and heavy to come to California. But we always ask, how much money? Now, the first one that talks money loses. You know that, right? First one that talks money loses. So we asked him, how much money you want? He said, well, I'm making $100,000 now. I won't come for less than 110. And I thought to myself, you know something, dude? I'm from Alabama. I know where you're preaching, and you're preaching a little country church out from where I was born, and they ain't going to pay you $100,000. So don't tell me that. You know, and so right then and there, I put a check mark on him. He, you know, can't have him. But you pay for what you get. And that's something that we have run into. I'll share this with you. We've run into this where if we pay a guy, and this goes back before too, if you pay a guy the money that he wants, and you can't, and you settle on something less, is he always going to be looking over his shoulder thinking, I got to find a better place to go? A younger person is going to do that. Younger person with a young wife or not married yet is always going to be wanting to have a family, buy a house, takes more money for his family, right? An older person is more settled, doesn't have the responsibilities or liabilities, I should say, of having bills and stuff. A little more settled in their life. Kids are out of the house sometimes. So if they're a lot older, they don't have teenagers or young people. so they may come a little cheaper.
What about health insurance and stuff like that?
Yeah. One thing that Dale brought up that I think is a good idea, he said, buy the preacher a term policy for life insurance. If he's young enough, you pay $10, $15, $20 a month for 25, 40, 50, 60,000, whatever you can find. Then if he happens to pass away, then that wife is set for a period of time, not dependent on him. So, yes?
I think it basically comes down to, if you have a large congregation, you probably want to have a full-time minister. If you have a small congregation, you probably want to have a part-time minister. Paul Slosher, who's an elder up in,
Yeah, he's been here, he helped us out last year.
yeah, and he used to go to various congregations. He's an excellent speaker, but all he did is come, preach, go.
Yeah.
And it worked out pretty good, but I think just, like I said, it comes down to money, it comes down to the size of the congregation. And if you have a small congregation, probably a part-time minister is best.
Yeah, I've heard of things where you can get 4 or 5 guys together. They do that at the Big Bear congregation, around where once every week, a different person goes up to preach. And so if you get 4 people to come preach, you know, you're not seeing the same preacher, but you're getting a steady dose of Scripture. I had a friend of mine tell me he wanted to do something where he would get himself and 3 other guys, and then they would get 4 congregations that needed a preacher that did not have the money to pay. And what you would do is you study, you have your lesson. So if it's me and John, Jake, and Curtis, first Sunday I'm at A congregation and I preach the sermon. The next Sunday I'm at B and John comes into A, and you rotate through. So you do one sermon and you pray that sermon at 4 locations for the month. That way it takes a little bit of pressure off having to preach, come up with something every week, just to help people try to grow the congregation back. Larry never got it off the ground, but he had was a thought he had. So so anybody else? Yes, Curtis?
I'm just saying about the office hours, I remember Larry was always available when he
Yeah.
first started here, he was always available if you needed to talk to him or something going on, he was always here.
You will find that, and Larry was old school, or is old school. That's how he was taught at the School of Evangelism in Buena Park. At one time, you could see a preacher, and you could tell what school he went to, just by what the things he was saying and the things that he talked about, his mannerisms, because certain schools have their tendencies. You know, I think I mentioned to you guys on Wednesday night that Abilene Christian is training Baptists now. Started in 2019, I think, when the Baptist seminary there in Abilene went out of business. They hired the guy that ran it to come over and run it for them. Now, can you imagine that? If you donate to Christian colleges and you donate to Abilene, you're donating to put Baptist preachers out into the workforce, out in the field. It's done for the money, I'm sure. I had a preacher at Yorba Linda tell me I was crazy, and I just pulled my phone out. Great thing with these phones, you just there you go. And Jason couldn't believe it. But is there anything else that you could tell us that you're looking for? This is your time. I thought would give us a little feedback.
I think it's important for the congregation to know that we're gonna stay within budget. I mean, you know, everything we have comes from them,
Yeah.
God through them, all right? And, we're not gonna get
I'll shed light on that. You know, when we had our meeting, our corporate meeting, 2 years ago, we made the comment that the nuts and bolts expenses, monthly expenses of the congregation, we wanted to be done by the contribution of the individual Christians. That the cell towers that are out there, we were not touching. The cell towers would be funds that would be used for any emergencies or to, on a term basis, support missionaries or something of that nature, be used for the Lord's work. We felt that if we became dependent on that money for a preacher, then at some point in time, the cell towers could go away. In fact, last year, one of them almost went away. Okay? Even though you have a contract, they could go away. So we felt that we did not want to get into a situation where we have a preacher, we've got a good program going here, and then all of a sudden you lose your money, your source, and you have to say bye-bye to that preacher. We didn't want that. So as Freddie said, we wanted to live within our means, like anything else, and we've tried to do that. And we set a budget. I've had Deborah, she's not here yet, but we've had Deborah work up forecasts, because that's what she did for a living when she worked as a comptroller. Scenarios of, for the next 5 to 10 years, of contribution staying the same, dropping off, or growing, so we could see where financially we could be. Because you don't want to hire a preacher for 2 years, let's just say $100,000. You don't want to hire a preacher for $100,000 when in reality you can't afford $70,000, right? But using the cell towers to do it, and you do it by faith, and things don't work out. Now you're in trouble. You're in more trouble than what you were in from the beginning. I think most of you guys understand that. I think when we made that comment to you 2 years ago, you guys shared that with you so that you would understand where it was coming from. So we will stay within budget. And we have a budget. But we're finding it that a lot of people want a lot more than the budget. And it's crazy. It's crazy. So, and I don't even know if they're worth the money, to tell you the truth. We haven't heard some of them. Anything else? We got a couple of minutes. Now's your time to speak.
Nice if you could sing. Oh, I'm sorry.
Lead singer. Oh, we got a song leader right here. We got Chris. We roped him in. Yeah. He didn't know it. He got hooked. Anything else, really? I mean, I've got a list of things we talked about before, and we've used this, not just this, I've used this as a standard. Yes, Alice?
I noticed that there's not a lot talked about the congregation and their giving here.
In giving? Okay.
So when it comes to being able to use a preacher or whatever, maybe we as a congregation should consider giving more.
Yep, we've talked about that.
Yeah.
We've talked about that.
And that way we're able, because when you hire someone, they have to pay, they have expenses just like we do.
They do? Yeah.
You know, so, sometimes it is a valid reason for the money that they're asking, like John said, according to their finances, you know,
Yeah.
if they have children.
We have discussed that, Alice. We discussed that, and we thought that we would, we're not in an urgent situation as we were, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when Larry got sick. Larry is still able to participate once a month or so. Freddie and I pick up a little bit of the slack, We can bring other people in, we can have other people do it too. We've done that, we've had some guest speakers come in. But we want to make sure that we do it right. We don't want to have to rehire somebody in 2 years again because he didn't work out. So we have talked about that and talked about even who would present that to the congregation on raising the contribution if we felt it was needed, and we would sit and talk about it. You know, we're finding people within the budget. We don't know if we're getting the right people or not. But if we found the right person and it was going to cost us a little bit more money, we would come to you and ask about that, you know, if you're willing to do that. This is a very giving congregation. Okay, it's a very giving congregation. The numbers don't always show it on the bulletin because a lot of people are retired and they give once a month when they get their retirement check or Social Security and whatnot. Some people give it every week. So that's why you see it go up and down. But believe me, Deborah's got it down to, she's got the program running, so we got, and if you ever want to see it, that you're always welcome to look at the financial reports. But we budgeted and we're running right on budget right now. Sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less, but we're staying right there right now, given the situation. So, any other questions? Yes, John.
Common sense preacher would know that if you got 50 members of old people, that he not gonna be able to make $100,000. That's a common sense preacher to me. So somebody looking at the size of the congregation and so forth should take that in consideration. And like, and maybe he should have a job. That's how I look at it.
Well, we talked with, tell them about the pews. Okay, okay, I'll let that go. If you guys want to know, I'll tell you personally, but we've had some people talk with them on the phone and whatnot, and some of the conditions that they want to come are just, you know, it's just crazy. It's crazy what they ask for. But we're a younger congregation too. Our younger people aren't here today. But when you look at our demographic breakdown, or age breakdown, I should say, out of 100 people, we've got about 25% young kids. All right? They're not here today because they're gone with the parents. But we've got 24, 25 young people. And if some of the people that are on the rolls show up, we'd have more than that. Okay? So, those young people have parents that are young too. So, you know, we got a good blend. We're just not all old folks here, John, whether you want to believe it or not.
No, I'm talking about income.
I know you, I understand that, I understand
Even
that.
the older people don't work anymore. Most older people don't work anymore. Some
Yeah.
people well off, but generally speaking, people that work and give more money because they get raises.
Yeah, that's right. So, anyway, the door is always open. If you have any concerns, if we bring people in, we want to hear what you have to say. Okay? Yes.
Not everyone likes to speak out in groups like this, but we're available. You got some thoughts, please,
Yeah.
you know, pull us over. In response to John, they look at us, they say, oh wow, they gotta talk to power, they don't have any overhead, you know, I mean,
We've got some positive things.
right, you know.
Some very positive things. Now, remember, any complaints goes to the complaint department. That's Freddie. Okay, no. Listen, I really appreciate your participation and your responses. I thank you very much. So we're dismissed and we'll get started in a few minutes.